Dust trembled in the orange light, drifting low across the porch boards where children's eyes pressed the glass, wide and waiting. The knock came again, measured, careful, like someone afraid of being sent away. Inside, the ranch house smelled of smoke and beans, supper left cooling on the table. Eli Callahan rose slow, his boots dragging across the floor. His shoulders filled the doorway when he opened it, and there she stood, Clara Whitfield, hat clutched tight against her chest, travel dress dusted with road miles. "I was told your children needed a teacher," she said, voice low, almost trembling. The wind carried her words into the room where Mary Beth and Samuel leaned forward, their breath fogging the glass. Silence thickened. The cicadas outside seemed louder than voices. Eli didn't move, didn't answer. His eyes traced the stranger's face. Too young for her eyes to look so tired, too proud for her voice to sound so uncertain. Clara lowered her gaze, the shame of whispers still clinging to her. She had refused Luther Pike, richest man in 3 counties, and in the town's eyes that refusal had branded her ungrateful, foolish, tainted. Now she stood at another man's threshold, offering usefulness in place of belonging. "I can read and write," she added quickly. "I can cook, so clean. I'll be anything you want, so long as I may teach." Eli's hand pressed the frame, rough fingers tapping once, like he weighed her words the way he weighed the grain in his palm each harvest. His children stirred behind him, Mary Beth half hidden in shadow, Samuel's small hand fisted in her dress. He finally stepped aside. "Come in." The boards creaked beneath her boots. She set her bag down soft, careful not to take too much space. The room smelled of loss, quiet, unfinished, like a house that had stopped breathing when a woman's voice had left it. Clara knelt before the children, her smile gentle, though her eyes flickered with nerves. She reached for Samuel's torn shirt, the rip down the sleeve glaring like an open wound. "May I mend this?" she asked. He looked at his sister. Mary Beth gave a small nod, reluctant, and together they eased closer. Clara's hands trembled as she took the cloth, but steadied once she threaded needle to fabric. At the table, Eli watched, silent. The lamplight caught the lines around his eyes, each one a ledger of long days. His jaw stayed tight, as though he distrusted kindness itself. The next morning, Clara chalked letters onto a broken slate propped on the porch rail. Samuel squinted, his lips moving around each shape. Mary Beth corrected him softly, eyes bright with something she hadn't carried in months. Behind them, neighbors passed along the road, women in bonnets whispering, men tipping hats without warmth. Their words carried like dust on the wind. Asterisk, that's the one who turned down Pike, playing governess now. Asterisk. Clara kept her face still, though her ears burned red. She traced the letter A again, slower this time, her hand steady even as shame rippled beneath her skin. From the doorway, Eli leaned one shoulder against the frame. He heard the whispers, too. His mouth pressed to a hard line, but he said nothing. His silence, heavy as stone, became a shield she could almost stand behind. Night stretched long. Clara stirred beans in the pot, the firelight trembling across her cheeks. Eli fetched water, without a word, and set it down within her reach. She stitched, he hammered, the house slowly filling with the sound of 2 people working without asking. Mary Beth left folded notes inside her schoolbook, clumsy words of thanks, shy drawings of stars. Clara found them by lamplight, her throat tightening as though she had been given a gift she wasn't sure she deserved. In return, Clara set a ribbon by the girl's pillow, nothing costly, only a thread of color. Mary Beth touched it the next morning, her face softening into a smile small but real. Samuel began humming when she read aloud at night. His voice was thin but steady, echoing against rafters and used to such sound. Eli listened from the porch, pipe forgotten in his hand, his eyes fixed on the window glow. He said nothing, but the lines in his face eased. One evening, as the last light bled across the prairie, hooves pounded down the road. Luther Pike's stallion cut black against the horizon. The man's girth filled the saddle, his coat gleaming with wealth. He did not stop, only slowed, casting a long glare at the house. His eyes locked on Clara where she stood on the porch, her hand pressed to the doorframe, children pressed close at her sides. The horse snorted, the iron bit jangling, and Pike rode on, dust boiling up in his wake. Clara's heart hammered. She kept her chin lifted, though her fingers dug into the wood. She felt the old shame return, the reminder that rejection carried a price, that the powerful did not forgive defiance. Behind her, Mary Beth's hand found hers, small fingers warm, gripping tight. Clara did not let go. Eli's voice came low, steady, almost like prayer. "Best come inside." And as the door closed, the air in the room thick with unspoken fears, the narrator's voice lingered. Asterisk. Sometimes a home is not built by lumber and nails, but by the trembling hands that dare to stay. Yet the past, like a shadow, was already circling us. Asterisk. The barn crackled like a throat full of fire, orange tongues licking through the timber beams. Horses screamed inside, hooves slamming against stalls. Buckets clattered, boots pounded, and Eli's voice cut through the night, rough as a whip. "Water, now!" Clara ran, skirts heavy with smoke, filling and hauling until her arms trembled raw. Sparks rained down, stinging her hair, biting her skin. The rope slipped once in her hand, blistering the palm, but she held. Samuel stumbled near the smoke, coughing hard. Mary Beth cried out, dragging at her brother's arm, until her own strength broke. Clara lunged through the haze, caught him, pressed his face against her dress, and pulled both children clear. The barn roof groaned, then folded, collapsing inward with a thunder that shook the earth. Fire roared higher, a beast finally freed. Eli's chest heaved as he staggered back, sweat and soot mixing into dark rivers down his face. His eyes locked on Clara kneeling in the dirt, cradling Mary Beth's small body, her hands blackened, her breath ragged. For the first time in years, his heart softened in the open. Days later, the barn lay in ash and ruin, the smell of char still hanging over the ranch. Townsfolk gathered at fence lines, whispering about who had struck the flame. No one spoke Pike's name aloud, but all eyes knew where suspicion pointed. Clara kept teaching, her fingers wrapped in cloth. She still lifted chalk, her letters less steady but no less certain. Mary Beth's eyes followed each stroke, her lips shaping the words with devotion. Samuel, pale but healing, hummed his tune again. But at the mercantile, the whispers grew sharper. Asterisk. She brings ruin. The Callahans would have been left in peace if not for her. Asterisk. Clara walked past with chin high, though each word landed like stone. Behind her, Eli entered silent, his presence filling the room until no one dared continue. He bought nails, feed, cloth, no different than any day, except his silence spoke like thunder. It was dusk when Pike returned. His stallion's hooves struck the yard dirt, his shadow falling long across the porch. Clara froze in the doorway, children behind her again, the same as the night he had glared before. But this time, Eli stepped forward, between her and the man who would claim her. Pike sneered, his teeth catching in the fading light. "You've worked hard to ruin yourself, girl, but I'll offer mercy still. Come with me now. Leave this hovel, leave these brats, and I'll set you right." The children clung tighter. Clara's breath trembled in her chest, shame and fury warring in her eyes. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Eli's voice broke the silence. "She doesn't answer to you." Pike laughed, a sound oily and cruel. "She turned down a future of silk. Now she clings to scraps. You think she belongs here? You think you can keep what isn't yours?" Eli's shoulders squared. His voice rose, steady as a prayer, unshaken as iron. "Not yours. Not ever." The yard stilled. The children held their breath. Even the cicadas hushed. Pike's face twisted, his hand twitching near the reins as though to lunge. But neighbors had gathered along the road, watching, whispering. His power weakened in their eyes with every passing second. He spat into the dust, turned his horse, and rode hard into the fading light. The dust cloud swallowed him whole. Night brought quiet. Clara sat by the children's bed, her hands wrapped, her body aching, yet her voice steady as she read softly from the one book she carried. Samuel's eyes drooped, Mary Beth's hand nestled into hers, trustful and unafraid. In the corner, Eli watched. No pipe, no words, only a man standing as though seeing something holy. When she rose, he caught her hand, rough fingers closing around her bandaged ones. He didn't thank her with speeches. Instead, he built her a desk inside the home the next morning. Not out in the dust, not by chance, but in the heart of the house where her place could not be denied. Clara traced its surface with her hand, tears silent on her cheeks. Mary Beth, shy, whispered, "Good night, ma'am." The word carried a weight greater than titles. It was a beginning of belonging. The ranch did not sparkle with wealth. The gossip did not end, and the scars of fire would never fade from timber or skin. But the air changed. The silence was no longer hollow. It was alive with lessons, with humming, with laughter shy but growing. Clara no longer stood on the porch waiting to be turned away. She stood within, steady, part of the frame itself. I tell you this. The voice of the old soul breaks softly over the embers of memory. Asterisk, not as a tale of fire and gossip, but as a remembering of how dignity is built. Quietly, in kitchens and lessons, in hands blistered yet unyielding. The world may spit its judgment, may burn what it cannot claim. But sometimes a family we are given breaks, and sometimes, by grace brave enough to knock, the family we keep is the one we choose. Asterisk,